Hey good people, welcome back to Beauty and the Frizz. My name is Kara, and whether you're new or returning, thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I am going to be talking about one of my favorite things, and y'all already know, is eyeshadow palettes. And since St. Patrick's Day is coming up, I wanted to share 10 eyeshadow palettes that have some amazing greens. Like, I'm going to show you them, I'm going to swatch them, and it always makes me excited to go into my collection and just value the things that I already own. So if you want to see the eyeshadow palettes that I want to talk about, keep watching this video. Let me know what you think. Do you love green eyeshadow? I don't know anybody who doesn't love green eyeshadow. If makeup is your therapy and your love, it makes you happy, and you're trying to make some better decisions in 2022, and you want to connect with another makeup enthusiast that's trying to do the same thing, definitely consider joining the community. I'd love to have you back. All right, let's get started. So I remember at this time last year, I swatched all of my green eyeshadows. I'm not gonna do that again this year. I did wanna just highlight my palettes, but I am thinking about going into some very notable green single shimmers, and maybe I'll do a separate video on that if you are interested. I love swatch parties, but I wanted to highlight the palettes today. And there are 10 of them that I wanted to go ahead and showcase that are in my collection and just give them some love. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, these are not going to be in any type of order as far as like how I like them or not. I just wanted to mention them because the greens in these palettes are just particularly notable, and I just wanted to highlight them. So first we're going to talk about the Camo palette by the Glam Shop. Here is the outer packaging, and here is the inside. If you have not tried Glam Shop, they are an indie brand from Poland. They have amazing palettes and singles. I would say that their shimmers are more notable than the mattes, but the shimmers that they put in the palettes are, I would say that the shimmers that you find in their palettes are usually the types of shades that you would only see as singles. And that's what makes their palettes stand out. This shade Moro is so pretty. Beautiful, wet looking shimmer right here. There's another shade here, I cannot pronounce it, but let's go ahead and just swatch this. Look at that duochrome there, but look at that. It's like that brown to green shift. We have the shade Khaki right here, which is a smoother green shimmer. Look how beautiful those shimmers are. And then you have a variety of different mattes. I love this palette, and I love the name Camo for this palette. It is just one of my favorite Glam Shop palettes, so I felt like this had to be on the list with my 10 green palettes. The next palette that I have to highlight, it wouldn't be a green palette video without this palette. This is Smoke Sessions by Bh Cosmetics. I did not purchase this palette at launch. This is a palette that I got, you know, way later, because I don't even know if I was buying makeup when this palette came out, but eventually I did decide to go ahead and pick this up. What I enjoy about this palette is that you kind of have two sides to this. You've got this minty, cool side, and then you have this kind of grungy, golden green side. And I'm not gonna swatch the whole palette, but one of the shades I really like is the shade Mean Green right here. Such a beautiful green shimmer. It's so smooth. And you know, I have talked about Bh Cosmetics at length about how some of their shimmers are smooth, they're just perfect, and some of them are so crumbly. Let me check out this shade Blue Dream and see if that's one of the crumbly ones, because these are the ones that are usually more crumbly. Let's check it out. This was actually not too bad. The Mean Green shade is definitely way smoother. I love these mattes. This Sour Diesel shade, it's kind of that grungy, it's deeper than an army green. It's almost like a brown green. I love this shade. And then you have Black Widow, which is kind of like, it's like green, but almost like that antique gold type shade. And there's Black Widow. I just don't think you can go wrong with Smoke Sessions, and I think this is one of Melt's signature palettes. I am so happy to have this one in my collection, and I want to bring this one out really soon. I could not do this video without mentioning this palette. They do have the 420 palette, but as far as the performance of that, I did have to change a shade or two out in that palette, and it's a cool color story, but it's not this one. I love this one. This is just so unique. The next palette that I wanted to mention is the Loki palette, and this is by Notoriously Morbid. I love this palette. I love the themes that Notoriously Morbid comes up with for their palettes. I just think it's such a unique brand. So this palette isn't totally green, which is fine, but there are some really unique green shades here. I love the shade Glorious Purpose, and right here it looks pink, but when I'm looking at it from the side, it's definitely green. I have to swatch this. Here's the shade. So I think you can see that green flip to that kind of like gold, and then the light pink iridescent shade. That is truly a unique shade in my collection, let alone to have a shade like that in a palette is amazing. We have the shade Trust My Rage. That's this shade right here. Another beautiful, beautiful metallic, and you can see it here. I don't even know what to say, I'm speechless. And then we have the shade Born to Be a King. That's the other one that's the standout here. Beautiful. And you might not be able to see it, but there are some kind of like gold and silver reflex in this shade. This one is a bit smoother, it appears, and I love this palette. This is just such a great palette. And the one thing that I always like to mention about Notoriously Morbid is if you love it or you like it, get it. Because when it's gone, it is not coming back. And I always have people telling me how they were so mad that they did not go ahead and grab the Loki palette, but this was a really good one. You also have the shade Neil, which is a matte green. I'm not into swatching the mattes as much because mattes may not swatch well. Some shimmers may not swatch well and perform beautifully on the eyes, but I don't have as much luck with swatching mattes, and they're honestly just not as exciting. So I'm gonna kind of skip the mattes, but these shimmers, we have just got to go into them because they are just amazing. The next palette, palette number 4 that I have to mention, this is one of my favorite palettes. This is the Erd palette by Oden's Eye. You guys, if you can get your hands on this palette, like I never tell people to buy stuff. Like it's very rare where I'll be like, oh yeah, you should get this. But what I'm saying is if you like green eyeshadows and you were curious about this palette, I would get this. To be honest, I like this better than the Big Norns palette, and it's my favorite out of the minis. And it's really all about this green right here. It's so rich. You've got this kind of like snotty mustardy green here, and then you have like this kind of iridescent or icy blue white shade. Got a beautiful brown here in this palette, and then this shade, this is also a green. It's super light. More of a blend out shade or inner corner highlight, but the shade Luxury really makes this palette for me. It is so rich. It is just a rich green. It's very foresty, and I just think it is so special. This is the shade here. I don't know if you can see, but it almost looks to me as if this green has a brown or black base. It's really unique. And I just think that makes the palette so special. If you were thinking about the Erd palette, I'm just saying, don't think about it. It is amazing. I always talk about that palette, and on the eye, it is just such a rich green, and I love it. It reminds me of nature, it reminds me of the forest. It reminds me of what the Nars collection was about to begin with. So yes, they really did it with that palette. For palette number 5, we're gonna get into Copacetic Cosmetics. I don't know if you've heard of this brand. I have an old video, I did a swatch video of my singles. This is one of my favorite quads. It has one of my all-time favorite shades in here, to be honest with you, and this is called the Spelunking quad. So this is it up close. But this shade right here, Glowworms, is so deceiving. I'm wearing it on my eyes. I actually have this quad on with my Unearthly Cosmetics Sleepover palette. Did a little combo look today. And I have Light Stick, I think is the shade, in the inner corner and underneath my lower lash line. I have Glowworms. Is it Glowworms? Oh wait, I might be reading this wrong. What if this shade wasn't called Glowworms all this time? That would be sad. But this has to be Glowworms. So I have Glowworms and then I have Descent. I don't know what I have on now. I'm sad. Hold on. It says Light Stick. I feel like this would be Light Stick. Well, maybe this is called Uncharted. I want it to be called Glowworms though. Who cares? I have this shade on and then I have this deep shade in the crease. I'm really blown right now. And this is why when I always talk about my Notoriously Morbid palettes, how they have their shades in the pan. They always have the shade match how you're looking at it, so you don't have to invert the shades. Like this shade here is this shade here. Does that make sense? It really works for somebody like me who apparently just messed up this name. Let me swatch this shade right here because you see how it looks green right there? Oh my God, let me show you the swatch. Here it is. Do you see? So it's like kind of a neutral shade right here, like a neutral, like a taupe situation, but then it flips green. So gorgeous. I love this shade so much. Oh my gosh. And then you have this beautiful, almost neon color. I don't know if this quad is still available, but this is one of the best things I've ever purchased from Copacetic Cosmetics. I love this so much. This had to be included because these greens are just notable and I am so happy I have this. For palette number 6, we're gonna go into Mama Pat. We are going into the Mothership II, which is Sublime. And Sublime is not a green palette, but there is one green shade. And one thing that we know is Mama Pat is not really trying to give us the blues and the greens that we need. But when we get them, they are amazing. And this is Blitz Emerald. This is one of her special shades. And it is a beautiful green. I think this shade makes the palette because without it, you just pretty much have a neutral situation. But this green always, when I use it, it really just adds something so special to the look. However you use it. You may just want to put it in the lower lash line. You might want to use it all over the lid. The last time I used it all over the lid with kind of a pink color in the crease. I thought the look came out beautiful. This is just such a great palette, and I think this is a sleeper as far as the motherships go. This shade is a duochrome, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it, but it does have a deep shift to it, and I think the shift is purple. These are shades I just don't feel like are talked about as much. There's just a lot of duochromes now, and there are tons of indie brands. I did not get this palette when it came out, but I feel like if this came out in 2017, 2018, there may not have been a lot of shades like this at the time, and I think this may have been a pretty unique shade at the time. You know, you gotta give credit where credit is due. This green makes the palette, and so happy to have Sublime in my collection. It always kind of creeps its way up as far as when I'm thinking about my motherships, the ones that I like, because the green just really takes it to a new level and makes the palette special. I think without it, you have kind of like a Divine Rose situation. Not that that's a bad situation, but that's the difference with this palette. It just really takes it up a notch. The other thing I want to say is I'm not a huge fan of Pat McGrath special shades. Some of them are just too sparkly and just too fallouty for me, but this one is not. This is one of the special shades that I really, really do love and enjoy. So palette number 7 goes to none other than the Pistachio palette from the Bh Cosmetics Sweet Shops. I cannot get enough of these. I know this one was sold out so many times. So when the restock came, I jumped on it. I just felt like I had to have it. I love the range of greens here in this palette. You've got light, you've got minty. I love how you have this deep shade here just to have like a green smoky eye. It's beautiful. I think one of my favorite shades in this palette is the shade Crunch, which is this shimmer here. Look how beautiful that is. And there's the shade. Look at how smooth the shade is. Just look at the shimmer. It is a beautiful, beautiful shimmer. I love the shade Sweet Life. This is gonna be great for all over the lid, inner corner highlight. It's just a beautiful, icy green situation. All of the greens in here are amazing. I love the shade Nutty. It's just a really good palette. I don't know. I feel like, you know, I don't know, this, as far as what I have from BH, this is the best that I have. And with their new situation, I'm not sure what to expect from them anymore. So I will forever cherish my Sweet Shops palettes. Yes, I will. Palette number 8 is gonna go to none other than the Snake palette by Tammy Tenuka, Sigil inspired. This is a beautiful palette. I've not yet done a video with it, but this is the Playful Snake. I did get the mini size. For someone like me who has a lot of eyeshadow, it's just really nice to have the option to get a mini size so I'm not being more wasteful than I already am. The shades in this palette are beautiful. I'm looking at this one right here. Let's see what that, oh. Ooh. Now this reminds me of my shade Patina from Cleona Cosmetics. That's like one of my favorite multi-chromes. Ooh, look at that. Look at that duochrome. It's like green to blue. That's beautiful. We have another, I mean, they're all of these are green. So this almost looks like the shade that I kept calling Glowworms, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. From Copacetic. Now I can't find it. Okay, I can't find it. But yeah, these are beautiful, awesome. And as I said, all of these are greens. Just a gorgeous palette. Like, look at this. This is like a neon, you know, beautiful neon green. And unfortunately, and this is so unfortunate, Tammy Tenuka has had to suspend her adventure palettes and the egg palettes, which the Snake one is one of the egg palettes. Until further notice, you know, the situation in Russia and what's going on over there is just, I mean, it's just incredible to believe what's happening. And I think I'm still getting the black glove palette, but UPS they weren't gonna be able to use UPS, so I'm gonna get it through the Russian post. I don't know when it's coming. I'm actually not worried about it because, like I said, there's just way more important things to worry about. But I do hope that she'll be able to get her brand on track because she has experienced a lot of growth and her eyeshadows they're literally Pat McGrath quality. I'm happy that other people are starting to notice it because I'm new to the brand as well. When you find treasures like this, you know, I think it should be noticed, you know? Like, she had all these little egg palettes, but they're not gonna hatch, not anytime soon. So she says suspended, so there's hope that, you know, things can get itself together. But again, there's just more going on right now. But I really wanted to note that palette because I think the greens in this palette are just such wonderful quality, and her ideas, you know, the idea of the egg palettes and the different animals that she chooses as inspiration for her palettes, I think is such a great idea. So had to mention that one. Palette number 9, haven't brought this palette out in a while, but when I thought about greens, I thought about the Wilderness palette by Beauty Bay. I need to use this again. It has been some time. But if you look at these 2 rows here, you've got some really nice greens. Some of them are like, got a couple like minty ones. There's a shade like this in the Smoke Sessions palette by Melt. I think that this minty shade is a little bit deeper, but they are able to do those shades in a real smooth way. Their shimmers are the types that kind of push in, and these remind me of the shimmers, I want to say, from Glamlight and maybe from Blends. I like this kind of formula because I feel like these don't give you fallout. It's almost like a putty. Look at that green right there. Let's put it in the middle of the other Tammy Tenuka. I swatched it almost right on it. It's almost a dupe. That's not Tammy Tenuka, is it? Yes, it is. It's almost the same exact shade, but I love how the Beauty Base shimmers work. They're just great. And I know that some of these shimmers are looking very similar to other shimmers, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that's okay. Because in my mind, I can't have too much green. I just can't. Look at this shade right here, Leaf. These little snotty greens, I love them. I really do. Ooh, that reminds me, and I don't have it in this pile, but the Flower Punk, that one end of the Flower Punk palette by Kaleidos has got some great greens. They're like melt-esque greens, and those are some high quality greens. Palette number 10, we're gonna get to that, and then I have one honorable mention, and then I'm gonna go. Do y'all know what palette number 10 is? I saved it for last so I could just say it. The Child. I mean, this is a good palette. Like, do not tell me about this foiled. Do not. Because this palette is so good. Okay, so I don't even like a whole lot of these types of greens, but I like this one. Babyface. Just a nice little, it's not mint green. I don't know what kind of green you call it. It's just, I said I wasn't gonna swatch mattes because it doesn't make any difference, but I don't know. This palette just works with the greens. It's not even like a green palette. Like, it's not like Pistachio. It's not in your face, but I just love the looks that I create with this palette. This shade, Sipping Soup. Sipping Soup is just, I mean, they're not spectacular, you know what I'm saying? They're not Tammy, they're not Copacetic, they're not the Pat McGrath. I mean, it's Colourpop, so it's not. But this palette with the greens just does it for me. This one's called Right Hand Mando, and this one doesn't even look like a green, but it's got like a greenish type situation going. Little Frog is a matte. I love the Child. I love the Child. Like, I do. Precious Cargo. Okay, this is not even green at all, but I had to include this in my green palette. I love these greens, and you know, it just doesn't have to be that in your face, bam, multi-chrome, duochrome green. This is just like more of a soft green palette, but I love the Child. I love it, love it, love it. Which keeps reminding me that I did not get the Darth Vader palette, and I'm just not gonna keep doing that with myself. Eventually, I probably will get it because I have the Child and then the Child 2, which is really the Mandalorian, but I call it the Child 2. And then the Child 3 would be the Darth Vader palette. That's what I'm calling it. Let's do one honorable mention. I just used this palette for the very first time last week. Y'all, why didn't anybody tell me about Supreme Nudes? Why? Nobody told me. Okay, and it's all about this shade right here that doesn't even look green right now. This is the shade Supreme. This is the best shade in the palette. It is the best shade. Like, come on, everybody. Like, this shade right here, stop playing with me. Can y'all see it? It's grungy, it's smooth, it's green, but it's nude. Like, how many neutral palettes include a green? I don't know, but this one does, and I enjoy. This is such a great shade right here. I don't know. Okay, so I don't even know when this palette was released, but I damn sure would not appreciate a palette like this. I did not appreciate this palette until January of this year, of 2022. But I have been getting more and more into neutrals, but I just love how it included this little grungy antique gold green shade. I just cannot, I can't. But I did, and I love it. For $40, great palette right there. I had to mention it because when I used it in my palette rotation, that was just like a little first impression. I had never used a palette before, and I was just so impressed. I mean, it just was a great shade. I'm so glad that it's in that palette because that is my type of neutral palette. And that's it. All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this video. I might have to come back and do maybe my 10 favorite green singles. I have more than 10 green singles, but see, I'll be talking all day. But you know what? I'm about to go through my singles now because I need to talk about these green singles. I'm gonna talk about green. I can talk about green as long as it's March, right? I mean, there's no rules here. So I've got some great green singles, and I have a couple greens that I got from one of my friends that she has some dupes in her collection and sent them to me. I mean, if you don't like green eyeshadow, let me know. I want to know who doesn't like green eyeshadow, because I just feel like there's a green for all of us. There's a green for us all, and that's it. Thank you so much for taking out some of your time and hanging out with me today. I hope this was therapy for you, because it damn sure was for me. And guess what? I'm checking all these off on my spreadsheet because they were used. Nobody said you had to do a look. You can swatch them. Yeah, I'm checking them all off, y'all. And until I see you again, make sure you're being gentle with yourself. Talk to yourself nice, stay safe, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.